Before we get into these discussions, let me introduce you to our dynamic co-queens for today. We have Lala, our realty goddess, in the house. Dr. Elisha, our therapist. We have Erica Lewis, our author, Faith in Transition, and Lindsay Bertner, Live a First Class Life. And we're going to discuss everything, the hot topic today, which is Diddy. So as you know, everyone's been blowing up about this Diddy case. I remember when we did the panel on Drake, and I was like, Diddy was probably so happy because nobody was talking about him. And then now Drake is probably happy because nobody's talking about him. We're back to Diddy. So before I get into anything too deep, I want to talk to you first, Dr. Alicia, because this is a domestic violence situation. And, to our audience, if you or anyone you know that are in a domestic violence situation, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone and support is available. But Dr. Alicia, you say you actually teach a class on domestic violence. So you're going to be the expert on this topic today. When Cassie came out with some of the allegations, people weren't necessarily supportive of her. Is that common in DV cases?
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty common. And the fact that even when the video came out, it was in 2016. It was just like this happened 3 years before they broke up. So they broke up in 2019 and the video came out in 2016. And you can imagine since that video, there have been other instances of abuse. This probably happened after that, but that speaks to the cycle of abuse and how difficult it is to leave an abusive situation. And I know we're probably going to show the video later on, but it just, I mean, there's phases in all relationships that people go through where there's just a beautiful phase where everything seems calm. Then there's this tension and this buildup. And then there's this moment where things just tend to just explode. And that's when the abuse happens. And then, of course, it's followed by this honeymoon stage. So it's not like he or abusers just beat up their victims every single day. There's a cycle of abuse and it psychologically sucks people in. So it makes sense from a psychological perspective that it takes some time for someone to leave that situation. And that's what we see here with Cassie.
Okay, so for those of you who are just joining us or haven't been familiar with the hot topic, Diddy finally confessed because there was a video that came out that was acquired by CNN. Some people said they thought that maybe someone leaked it or maybe CNN paid to get it, powers that be. But before we show you this video, it shows some very sensitive, triggering actions. So if, we just want to give you that heads up before we actually show you this video. Are we showing the video? Yes, there we go.
New surveillance footage obtained exclusively by CNN appears to corroborate some of the allegations of abuse against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The video, captured on multiple cameras, shows Combs wearing only a towel, assaulting his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in a hallway at a Los Angeles hotel in March 2016. A lawsuit filed by Ventura in November last year and settled the next day referenced actions that seem to match those seen in this video.
Wow, that was very hard to watch. And before we get into full details about this video, Lala, I want to ask you a question since you're a realty goddess. This happened on IHG's property. And there's been a lot of outrage around their accountability around having this footage or this happening on their property. Is IHG Group, are they liable for not reporting this during?
I believe so. I believe so. They had a responsibility to report this. I actually have been to that hotel. It is no longer in business. They have gone out of business. This is located in Century City of Los Angeles. But if you ask me, it was their responsibility to report any type of crime that goes on in their hotel and on their properties. They failed to do that. So if you ask me, they are totally liable for what they have done. Now, the question is, the statute of limitations for Diddy in California is over. And I find that very sickening to my heart. The statutes of limitations should never be over for something like this. But is that the case with the owners of the hotel at that time now, since they're no longer in the business? And also the fact that they took bribe money. They took,
yes, I heard they took for 50,000.
50,000, really, for someone who was beaten almost to death. I mean, I get sick to my stomach when I see that. I have limited myself to watching that video. So are they liable? If you ask my personal opinion, yes, they are, all the way. And anyone who knew about this should be liable as well. But with the statute of limitations, maybe not so with the California law.
Erica, let's talk to you about everything. Do you think, because also on the internet, everyone's saying, well, as we discussed previously, domestic violence victims always don't get support. Do you think that people who are jumping on the bandwagon now, that they have actually watched the video? Because rappers like Slim Thug and Erykah Badu and other celebrities initially were not really rallying for Kathy in this situation. Do you think it's a case of being a little too late?
You know, I think this is an instance where the older women, it's a scripture, the older women teach the younger women. And I think, unfortunately, Cassie is now an older woman within wisdom with what has happened to her. I think those that spoke out against her, saying like, oh, she should have left long before, you need to step back, because domestic violence is something that takes time to groom. She didn't just walk into this and get knocked upside the head. This takes time. And this is what you call grooming gone wrong. She went into this having a good time. And this kind of segues back into a conversation we had last week where we talked about, you know, the age gap. You know, this kind of goes back into that, because he does have a history of dating much younger women. Because, you know, women of a certain age who've experienced some things and seen some things, we're a lot harder to manipulate and to groom, because the minute we see a red flag, we out the door. But what he was able to do is, because she was 19 years old, is, you know, glittery things, shiny things, distractions, grips, shoes, handbags, jazz hands. And then all of a sudden, that same hand that's giving you all the glitter and gold, and here we are. And it knocks you off kilter, so to speak, because you're like, wait, what just happened? And you don't know how to respond. And the next thing you know, as soon as you get hit, here's a treat, here's a treat, here's a treat. So it takes him through. You've gone from being groomed to confused to groomed, and now you don't know what to do. And now you have alcohol and drugs that are put into play. Oh, you got a headache, here, just take this. Oh, your shoulder hurts, just take this. So it's a slow process of introduction. So I think at this juncture, I think, yes, we need to start taking a deeper look at domestic violence in Hollywood, as in everyday life, because it is an issue in everyday life. However, we need to start looking at this, because it is a thing that is going on, and it's going to continue if women do not speak up and bring awareness to what is happening to them.
Okay.
And don't forget, now he actually was still over her singing career on top of that. So she has the fear of her own job of being an entertainer being taken away from her as well.
Yeah, see, so that's another thing I don't think people really understood. They were talking about all the money that she got out of the lawsuit. See, this was not a civil lawsuit. She sued him as an employee. So she was on payroll under all of these different corporations. So she was getting a check. So technically her fear was, number one, she's on an NDA, which I call notice, but don't ask anything. You can notice everything that you see, but don't ask about anything. She was on an NDA. And then if she had actually just left, now she doesn't have any income coming in. So yeah, this was a big heap hole for her. She didn't know what to do. We don't know what her family life was like. if she had support at home or why she left home at such an early age. We don't know anything really. So, I mean, there's a lot to take into consideration here.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you guys are saying, because what you're speaking to is the power imbalance, between Puff Daddy and Cassie, or whoever, whatever young person he's in a relationship with. If you think about it, he's charismatic, he's got all this money, he has all of this influence, and he can sweep someone off their feet. I mean, that's really striking his superiority over a helpless person and jumping in and making life instantly wonderful for someone. That's the power imbalance. So it's almost like the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of thing, where you first come out and you're nice and charming in this likable exterior, which he had a very likable, very attractive kind of personality. And then behind closed doors, he turns into someone that's abusive and mean. And so that's the power imbalance. And then you're starting to look, you're like, you know what? This is Puff Daddy. This is Sean Puffy Combs. Everybody loves him. And so you start to internalize it and say, there must be something wrong with me. So absolute power can corrupt. And when you are just drunk with this level of power, it can make an impact on relationships.
Right. If you are just joining us, welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we master mindsets and maximize your income. We are here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to like and subscribe so you do not miss a thing. Also, text the word Queens, that's Queens with an S, to 87948. We are discussing Diddy's confession and his ongoing case with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie. And things are getting very spicy. I actually want to kick it to you, Lindsay. I have a question for you. I know we talked about the power dynamics, and Cassie was young. She was in her teens when she met him. And not only was she his girlfriend, but also an employee. But does Cassie have any accountability in this situation as well? Now, we know that physical abuse, there's just no excuse, right? There's no excuse. But some people are saying in these internet streets, just like how there are moments throughout their, I think, 8-year, 10-year relationship where she could have left, like how she was trying to leave just now, I guess. But that was just a long time to be in a relationship enduring that kind of abuse. Does she have any kind of accountability or any blame as far as taking a long time to leave?
I think what's important to note is that when people are abusers, they are master manipulators. And as a mindset expert with the degrees in psychology and counseling, I've seen the cycle and how it works. And so, like she was saying earlier, it doesn't start off negative and bad. Like, they don't start off punching you in the face. It takes time. And when people have a history of doing that with all of the people that they've been with before, then they get better and better at doing it to those who come next. One thing that I want to mention is that in the video, you can clearly see that she's leaving. She has her things. She's trying to hurry and get away quietly. And I saw in one of the articles where it said he woke up while she was trying to leave. So we don't know how many times she tried to leave before that incident was caught on the security camera. She could have tried to leave many times, but they catch you, they harm you, they do even worse things. Like, some people don't make it out to tell their story later because now we're having a funeral for their services because they weren't able to leave. And so we have to keep all of those things in mind. And oftentimes people are like, well, that can never be me.
Yeah, it can. Mm-hmm.
I was one of those people that said, oh, I would never let anyone put their hands on me or abuse me. And I ended up in that exact situation. It started off, a little by little by little, and it grows. And then there's the gaslighting and the manipulation. Well, I didn't say that, or I didn't mean it like you thought I meant, or that didn't really happen that way. So then it goes back to, okay, well, did it happen like that? Or is it me that's wrong? And there's a lot of mind play that goes into abusive situations that we have to be mindful of when we're thinking about, well, why didn't she leave? she could have tried to leave many, many times.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I'm sorry, Mel, jump in. Sometimes it's dangerous to leave. Sometimes you don't need to leave, because a lot of unfortunate situations happen right when the woman is trying to leave. I'm saying woman because that's normally the victims. But during that moment where someone is trying to leave an abusive situation, that's when they're more likely to be in danger of being harmed the worst. So leaving a situation like that takes planning, it takes time. And we know from research that in an abusive situation, that someone tries to leave at least 7 times before they actually are able to leave that abusive situation. So we can't, just as nascent individuals, just say, why don't you just leave? Well, it's dangerous to leave. And that's normally when really, really, really abusive occurrences happen during that process of a woman or someone leaving in that situation. So it's easy to say it than done.
Also, let's not forget that it's not all only, everybody keeps saying on her, she should have talked up earlier. We don't know what all went behind the scenes, but I can guarantee you one thing. I'm sure it wasn't just between those two. What about the people who knew what was going on behind closed doors? Diddy's at the level where he has personal assistants all the time, bodyguards all the time. Someone around him knew that this is happening. So why would you not say something? I have a serious problem with that, because I will report something. I'd rather have you mad at me and never talk to me again than to have you dead. That's how
interesting, though, because
and the unfortunate part is, I think for a lot of those that didn't want to talk, their lives were in danger. Not just their careers or their finances. I hear you. I probably would have said something too, but the ramifications of that afterwards, we don't even know what that looked like.
But can't you do it anonymously? There are many anonymous lines where you can.
But is he going to face the consequences? Because
he only has the people like him in this tax bracket, so to speak. They only have 5 to 7 people that are around them, and those 5 to 7 people have to be on the same page. If something is leaked, the question now becomes, okay, well, who's the rat? Because the only people that knew about this were the people in this room. And and it's just very unfortunate, because when people are on the payroll, when they're on that payroll, they everybody just turns around and looks the other way, and it is very unfortunate. And I just think Cassie, got into this. It was fun. She was having a good time. She was living her career dreams, and then this just went left. And when it went left, everybody looked right.
But even if, all right, say in the hypothetical that it's reported to the police, Diddy's a billionaire. At that level, a lot of those men have access to resources. They can erase you off Earth and no one can find you.
And I mean, he had police.
They can traffic you and send you.
Or threaten your family members. They can threaten your family members. Who knows what goes through the mind of an abuser like that to try to maintain control.
That was actually said. Many people did say that, he threatened their family when it came to other cases. And in one case, it was said and very well documented that she tried to leave and he threatened and blew up someone's car when she left. No one's talking about that part.
And Kid Cudi confirmed it, by the way. He was like, yes, his car did get blown up.
Yeah, he did answer that. I can see that. I guess my pain comes from the fact that we don't want to see anyone go through what she did. This level of beating that she took was so sickening. I physically got sick watching it, thinking, this poor girl, like, is there anybody there to help her? And then to feel that someone took money to hide it, that to me is not, at what point, where do we lose our humanality is what I'm asking. Because at some point you got to say, this is enough. I can't. And I guess I don't understand that level.
Great comment. I just wanted to segue for those of you who are just joining us now. We are talking about Diddy's confession and everything involving around his case with his ex-girlfriend Cassie. Be sure to subscribe to us and like while you're coming in, and also text the word Queens. Okay, that's Queens with an S to 87948. For those of you who may be in a domestic violence situation or know someone who can use that help and resources, please be sure to reach out to the DV hotline at 1-800-799-7233 as we are discussing this very triggering but necessary topic. Dr. Alicia, I actually have a question for you. So Diddy's a music industry vet. He's been around for a long time. People on the streets are saying that this was behavior that has been occurred for a long time, and not just Cassie, Kim Porter, and other people, allegedly, right? Let me say allegedly. You being, a therapist, you teach a DV class. It just seems like is there certain industries or signs that lend to being more volatile or having domestic violence cases? Because people are saying the music industry as a group, there's a lot of domestic violence. There's R. Kelly, there's Chris Brown and Rihanna incident, there's Quavo and Sweetie's incident in the elevator, and God knows what else that happens that we don't have footage or evidence of. Is the music industry like an environment that's ripe for that type of behavior?
Was that question directed toward me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. Let me just say something. There's an irony here, right? Because, and I know we haven't gotten to this part yet. Yes, hip hop culture has embedded in itself misogyny, sort of looking down and objectifying women in the hip hop culture. But I want to take it a step further because we start getting into the music industry and what's being promoted in the music industry versus who we really are as Black people. And I know we haven't talked about this, and we will, but I think the irony of it all is the white saviors have been coming out and speaking on behalf of Black women as if, we're victimized by these savage Black men, when we know in reality that domestic violence cuts across all racial groups, right? And we know, I've been talking about this for a little bit, we know that as Black people, we were invaded by violent white people with their Bibles and their guns, right? So nobody is more savage than the white man who came and raped us, who introduced all of this violence into us and stolen us from Africa. Let's just think about the history of it all. And what's ironic about it, I know we're going to get into it, that Cassie is now married to a white man who put out a very poignant statement about domestic violence, which is interesting. He's sticking up for this Black woman because Black men can't do it. And I just think that on another level, there's this sort of rescue. Like white men have to rescue us from savage Black men who don't know how to control themselves and contain themselves because they're so savage. So I'm thinking about it in terms of a big picture, that these are lies being told about who and what we are as people. And it's not true. That's not who we are. We're a kind, gentle individuals as a group, as a whole, when we get back to our roots and who we really are. There.
Listen, I appreciate, we needed to hear that. We needed a reminder. Okay. Yeah. We need a reminder. So Lindsay, I want to kick it to you. Okay. I want to kick it to you because you said you had a background in psychology and understanding all of that. So when it comes to mental health, a lot of people are saying that they wouldn't be surprised if Diddy decided to exit himself. Do you think that he is in a very vulnerable position right now and he might use that as an option?
That is definitely a potential option. Whenever somebody of that power and that magnitude has the ability to do whatever they want and they've gotten away with it so long, and then it's time to face the consequences, it's like, wait, I can't handle this. Like, I might as well not go on living. And we've seen that happen time and time again in other stories. And so that is definitely a high potential. And I want to make sure that I point out some warning signs of potentially being in an abusive relationship, because some people might be in an abusive relationship right now and not even know it. It can definitely start off as, making little comments about what you look like or about who you are. And then they add a little laugh after it. And, oh, I'm just joking. We're just kidding around, not knowing that they're planting seeds in your subconscious. And then they say it again. And then they say it with a little more threatening tone or a little more power. And then next thing you know, they're full on insulting you in different ways. And you start to subconsciously take on what they're telling you that you are. And they also go through love bombing, where they're showering you with gifts or showering you with praise. And this can happen a lot in the beginning. So for people that aren't used to being praise or given things, or people doing nice things for them for no reason at all, that can be a lot. Like, oh my gosh, this person really loves me. They keep calling me beautiful. No one's ever done that. No one's ever gave me a gift for nothing. And then they hang on to that, not knowing that it's a setup for what's to come, for that Jekyll and Hyde flip. And then they do something and then, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. I'm just so passionate. I love you so much. And then they go back into the love bombing and they start it all over again. So these are just a few signs to look for: just the insulting, the name calling, isolation, because I'm sure it'll come up. Well, she was in it for the money. That's why she filed that lawsuit. A lot of times abusers will try and isolate you from your family, from your friends, from the things that you used to do, from your money, if they can, because it's easier to control you whenever they have control of everything around you. Mm-hmm. And there's just so many things in play. I could talk all day. Oh, goodness gracious.
Okay. I'd like to add to that, because I think a lot of them also play on the fact that she's not going to leave. She's afraid to leave all of that I've given her. She's afraid to walk away from all of this. And while I was not in a physical abusive relationship, my last relationship, I don't know what happened. We ended up, it was in the middle of COVID. So we looked at each other one day. It's like, I don't like you. I don't like you either. And I decided I wasn't going to stay there to find out how much more he didn't like me. I left a full house of furniture. We just moved into our new apartment together. I had a house, but I was working on ships, so I didn't need that big old house. So I left a house full of furniture because I noticed some behavior that was not conducive to my spiritual growth and development. And I walked away from a house full of furniture. I took every piece of clothes and all of my personal paperwork that I gathered over a period of time. And when he knew anything at September 1st, I said, I'm leaving. And he was in disbelief. Packed up my car, gave him the keys, and I left. Ladies, gentlemen, whomever, if you are in an abusive situation, please stop being afraid to lose things. You are worth more than items. You're worth more than anything tangible that can be replaced. Get out of there. Even if you're leaving clothes behind, you'd rather have to purchase everything again than to not be here to purchase anything again. It's okay to walk away from things.
I always find that people are always shocked when people decide to actually leave relationships. But Lala, what were you going to say?
I'm sorry. I know we always go back to Tina Turner, but it is such a poignant point in this conversation, in the fact that she took as much as she could take, and then when she was done, she didn't even really have a plan. She just knew that last time was the last time, and she ran at that point with the clothes on her back. And if that's what it takes to save your life, then that's what it takes to save your life. Things are things, material things just don't matter. You can't go to the next realm with them, but your life is more valuable. But you have to understand the mentality. You have to be able to, it's really hard to just tell somebody they gotta go. It's gotta be something in their heart of hearts that they know. You can tell them till you blue in the face. I'm not saying don't tell them, not have the conversation with them, but know until something actually clicks that it's not going to happen for them until they've had enough. And I think a lot of us sometimes don't understand that. We want to just tell them, leave, girl, leave. But they have to be here. Something in your head has to click for them to say, you know, this is not okay. Just like you, Dr. Erica, you said you just said bye, didn't have a plan. Sometimes it takes that. And if you're in that position right now, baby girl queen, get out, because we need you, not the stuff that you bring.
Yes, to the left, to the left. Okay. You can always buy new things, but you cannot replace your life. If you are joining us, welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we teach you to master your mindset and maximize your income. We also take hot topics and give you life lessons that you can glean from them. Today, we are talking about Diddy and his situation with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, which is a DV situation. Video footage was actually released that implicated Diddy, and we are discussing things and gems that we can learn from that. If you like this video and other content, you can find us here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to text the word Queens, that is Queens with an S, to 87948. Also, since this is a very sensitive topic, please be sure that if you or someone you know are in a DV situation, you can also reach out for resources at the hotline 1-800-799-7233. Now, Dr. Alicia, I want to talk to you in regard to what is going on with this DV situation. Are there things, or is there a good method of escape or proper way to leave a situation, since those situations tend to be so volatile, and from my understanding, a woman has a higher chance of like getting exited when she's trying to leave. Are there any tips you can share with the audience about how to do that?
Yeah, I think number one, you have to have an exit plan. So if you have a neighbor or somebody or a friend or a relative that's close to you that knows what's going on, that understands, have a conversation with them. Find a safe person to talk to about it so that you can tell them, hey, when I feel like my life is in danger, I need a place to go. So you have to plan that way. Also, a person that you can go to. If it's a neighbor, it can be somebody down the street. So if you ever feel unsafe, you can just exit the house and run down the street, and that person knows when they see you what it's about. Second thing I think you should do is pack a bag. Put some valuable information, it could be some cash money, it could be clothes, it can be important paperwork and documents. If you have children, which is really difficult to leave in those situations, if you have children, make sure that important documents are in this bag, and it has to be someplace you can store it, in the garage, or put it in your car, lock it in your car, or by the front door in a inconspicuous place, or you can leave that bag at a friend's house. So, I mean, it's where you have to plan for when you feel unsafe, that you could just jet to the door and have things with you. I also think that you should get therapy and get help, so that you can tell your story and have documentation of telling your story and talking about what has happened to you, and a nice listening ear, someone that can validate you, because gaslighting is serious. You really start to question yourself. You really think, oh my God, I'm something's wrong with me. That's the thing with domestic violence situation. You internalize that, and you're thinking, if I just cook dinner better, then he won't be so upset. If I just make the house cleaner, if I was a better wife or a better spouse, then he or she wouldn't get upset. Because women are perpetrators too. More often men are perpetrators, but so you want to just have someone that you can talk to, but it's not something you can just leave right away, because it can be something potentially dangerous. And I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, because that's very inspiring, and that was very vulnerable of you to share your story like that. So I just want to make that statement. Thank you so much for sharing of how you left. I can't remember your name.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for sharing that story. I think it's sometimes you think only certain type of women or certain women from certain backgrounds face DV, and that is just a fallacy and not real. And I think you sharing your story helped to humanize it and give it a face that no matter what economic background or status that you may or may not have, this is something that affects a lot of us.
Yeah, and now, it's because, wait, I want to say something. It's because when you're in a domestic violence situation, you're really good at compartmentalizing. You can be a lawyer and be successful in your career and do all these wonderful things in your life, and then come home to an abusive situation. It's a wonderful thing that the brain does to compartmentalize what's going on in your private life that versus what happens when you're out and doing your career and facing the public, so to speak. So I just think that that's the reason why you'd be so surprised. Beautifully intelligent, successful people can get caught into a domestic violence cycle. Yes.
Yes. So if we are going to discuss the other part of this aspect where the tape did get released of him in the hotel, but he also came onto the internet streets with his confession as well. So we are going to run the tape, run the footage, and discuss what we can glean from that. Listen.
On the darkest times in your life, sometimes you got to do that. I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy, and go into rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry.
Listen, remember when Diddy was walking around calling himself Brother Love? Remember he was doing that? So I don't think that was a genuine video. I think that was a PR. Let me try to put a little band-aid on this real quick. But Erica, I want your thoughts on it. Do you feel like that video from Diddy was sincere, or do you think it was more so a response that he had to put out because that video was just so damning?
I think what it was, he had to say something and he had to do something quickly, and this was not well thought out. First of all, I'm curious as to who is he apologizing to? Is he apologizing to Casey? Is he apologizing to his peers who have seemed to cut him off and not want to deal with him? Is he apologizing to his fan base who has spent all their money over the last 35, 40 years making him the icon that he is? Sir, who are you apologizing to? Because I do not accept your apology. Because the person that you need to be apologizing to is a young woman who you have scarred for a better part of her life over the course of 10 years. You've got to be kidding me. No, this is absolutely disgusting. It's degrading, and it's more of a slap in the face than what this initial process was, because it's all about him. It's all about him. I sought therapy. I went to rehab. I'm disgusted. No, sir, we are disgusted. That young woman is disgusted. Her family is disgusted. Okay, no, you're more upset because you had to cut a check and they put a pretty hefty dent in your pocket. So yeah, I don't really think he is aware of the depth of what he's done. I don't think he's aware. I think he's very disconnected because he's been so disconnected from reality for so long. This is just another stage for it. We talked earlier about him possibly unaliving himself. I said that a few months ago. I could definitely see that being the case because he is so far gone. He doesn't really know how to come back. And honestly, what does reality look like for him? He doesn't know because he's been living in this unrealistic world for so long till that is his reality.
Right. So, Lindsay, I want to ask you, how do you feel about the video? And do you think that he was sincere? And are, DV abusers, do they have remorse towards their victims, or is it more so they're more focused on themselves?
Oftentimes it is very self-centered, and I do not believe the apology at all, because if he was truly remorseful, if he was truly reformed, if he was truly Sean Love or whatever he changed his name to, then he would have outed himself a long time ago. He would have been trying to do things to better domestic violence survivors or that community or the resources. Oh, I'm going to donate some money to this community because they deal with domestic violence or things like that. He wasn't sorry until he got caught. And that's exactly what this video shows. And like, some of my lovely co-hosts has pointed out, it was a lot of I statements, and that's another form of the abuse still playing out, because whenever they would do something to their victim, then it's like, oh, well, you made me feel like this, and this is why I did it, because you did this. And like you said, he never said her name. He never said exactly what he was doing. So I believe that the confession, the apology, or whatever he wants to call it, was completely BS. Y'all.
Listen, someone said that Diddy must not have been keeping up with his Illuminati membership payments, because it just seemed like ever since he tried to sue Diageo over that liquor thing, that racism lawsuit, it has been hell raining down on Diddy. So Lala, our realty goddess. Okay, our realty goddess. How do you feel about the video, Diddy's confession, and your insights on that?
Well, let's see. Snakes have forked tongues, and that is exactly what came out in this video. Everything was about him. Everything was about how he has talked to God. Now, listen, I'm a believer, and I don't get involved with people and their beliefs. Whatever comes between them and God is there between them too. But I do know what needs to happen here on this earth. He needs to serve time. He needs to stop trying to focus only on him. This has ramifications for many people, not just him. Right now, he's only looking at his own stuff. I cannot tell you, I said those exact same words that Erica said to my husband when he put out the video. I said, he don't know how to deal with this. I wouldn't be surprised if he took himself out over this, because he is so disconnected. He has built his whole world around love. Didn't he name his last baby Love? Love and this and that. But you see, that's his Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality. And sir, I don't know who you thought believed that, but I sure didn't. And I also see that many other people don't believe that. I don't see how people could possibly support him after he was so adamant that this didn't happen. And just completely said, Eric, it was absolute lies. It's sickening. And yes, sir, we got you on tape. So now you don't know what to do, because you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because we've actually seen it with our own eyes. It's no longer allegations. We saw this, and you cannot slither back into your hole. So it's disgusting to me. And I really hate to see that so many people are still kind of supporting him after this came out. And one, you lied, and two, you know he did it. And so how can you possibly support this? We need to rally behind Cassie. We should have been in the first place. When a woman tells you or shows you, she showed up at award shows with bruises. So I don't believe him. And I thought this was really dumb. You could have kept that to yourself. And that's all I got to say about that.
So Dr. Alicia.
Yeah, this apology. I mean, well, let's just say there's two elements of his apology that actually was spot on. He took full responsibility for his behavior, finally, right? So that's a good element of an apology. And also another good element is that he did have remorse. So those were two good things that you would expect in an apology, right? What he did not do that he needed to do, he promised that he would change, and he said he's going to therapy and dealing with it. Well, what exactly in your therapeutic process did you now discover that makes you now a changed person? He would need to do that. And he would also need to make amends to Cassie. He needs to make amends. He would have needed to acknowledge her hurt because she was in pain. He would need to address the fact that almost a decade had gone by and he's sitting here denying what happened. So he needs to address that hurt to her. It didn't need to be public. You know, that should have happened specifically to the person he offended. And I think he should seek forgiveness. He needs to forgive himself for what he did after therapy. He needs to forgive himself. He needs to ask Cassie for forgiveness, whether she gives it to him or not. That's not for her, it's for him to get forgiveness. And I do want to say something. I do think abusers can turn around. I do have hope for abusers. I have worked with perpetrators of abuse, and many of them can make the conscious decision to change their ways, to understand and to see how and why they behaved in the way that they behaved. I think we need to get away from demonizing individuals, because domestic violence is something that's really common, very common, and not even just physical abuse, but also emotional abuse is really, really common. Psychological abuse is common. Any people who do this in romantic relationships, there is treatment that works. There are therapists out there that can help turn a lot of couples around and a lot of individuals who are domestic violence perpetrators. Now, if you're a psychopath, that's a whole nother thing. even narcissists, and I know there's some people in the chat talking about how Puff Daddy is a narcissist. He could be, I don't know. We don't diagnose, treat, or cure here, but if he is, I do think that I have hope for even narcissists, that they can begin to look at their behavior and they can change themselves and turn themselves around. I've seen it happen. I've worked with people all over the case, who have made the conscious effort to do better and to be better.
Listen, I don't know if I want to be the next relationship after you you decide that you're doing this turnaround. But a quick question, and then I'm going to segue to you, Erica. Dr. Alicia, are you saying that if Diddy came to you for treatment, you'd take him on as a client?
I don't know if I would. I don't know how I feel about taking celebrities as clients, honestly, but I think it would take a team of individuals, to work on what's happening. And he would have to go through a very long process of introspection and psychodynamic work to get to the why and the how he did what he did. I'm just saying that to say, because I think, just like I said before, I think we demonize narcissists and people who seem to have personality disorders. I think we just throw this label on them and throw them out, and to say that they're nobody. But think about it. Perpetrators are hurt individuals. I'm not making an excuse for his behavior, but I'm saying they themselves grew up in situations that were less than ideal, and there's a lot of pain that's happening within them to do these behaviors. Now, should they go to prison and jail and receive the consequences legally? Yes, they should. All of that should happen. But at the same time, I do think people can turn around. They can see their behavior and how it affects other people. They can see the dynamics of power and control and where that comes from. And they can turn things around and heal and get better. There's so much healing that needs to be done with perpetrators as well as abusers. And I know it can happen because I've seen it happen in my office, so I know that these things can get better.
Well, hopefully, regardless of whatever outcome happens, hopefully justice prevails and he seeks the treatment that he so clearly needs. If you are joining us, we are discussing all things Diddy as he confesses about his situation, the domestic violence situation with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie. We are Fly Nubian Money, and we are your queens for today. Be sure to not miss us as we are here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to text the word queens to 87948. That is queens to 87948. And also, since we are on the topic of domestic violence today, if you or anyone you know needs help out of the situation, we gave some great tips. Be sure to call the number 1-800-799-7233 to get the resources and help that you need. Now, I want to segue into the money, okay? Because we are Fly Nubian Money, and this situation has a lot of implications for Diddy, his wealth, his estate, and his legacy. I want to pivot to you, Erica, because I remember you were talking about, your father was in music industry, and it seemed like you had a music industry background. What does this what is the potential impact this can have on Diddy and his music fortune?
What's really unfortunate, and I don't think he has even fathomed this, like he's talking a whole lot about God. But does he remember that scripture that says the sins of the father fall on the children? I don't think he read that scripture. And see, what he is doing is he is really messing up the legacy for his children. What you're supposed to do is all the greatness that you do, you leave it behind to your kids so that they can continue to carry that torch. And all of what he is going through is really overshadowing all of the great work in music that he has actually done. He's really done some amazing things. He really, I mean, catapulted the 90s in music and hip hop, put a staple in it, and it's just gone. Does anybody really remember? Now it's looking back at the abuse of all the artists, the abuse of them financially, the abuse of them, with their ownership and their publishing. That's what's being looked at. So at this point, is there anything going to be left to give to your children? And another thing, are we even looking at the ramifications of the abuse that he's opening up their children to be in? He has a lot of daughters. He doesn't just have the twins. He's got other little girls. So he's really opening up a door of spiritual energy that could infiltrate their lives because of what he's done to someone else's life.
Mm-hmm.
One more point I did want to point out is that there is a subtitle to the domestic violence abuse that Cassie went through, and it's called substance abuse. And I think she realized that she was being abused when she stopped using.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of substance abuse there. And now that it's clearly he's not as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as he once was. So clearly that he is eliminating some substance abuse from his life. And now everyone's looking at things through clearer eyes, and he can see he probably was unaware of 80 to 90% of what he did. It does not excuse him for what he did, but now he's being made aware, and
Yeah, it was discussed that there was a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, pink cocaine, all of that flowing around. As a CPA and a wealth expert, I will say this. And fun fact too, when I was studying accounting, one of my favorite courses was forensic accounting because I'm fascinated by white collar crime. It's like fascinating to me. It's not just that he's losing his deals and partnerships and having to step down from those businesses because they can't afford to keep Diddy in those businesses without risk of losing their insurance, their key insurances that they need for those businesses. So he's a big liability. The other part, which is interesting because of the raids that are happening, if anything can be tied to from these raids, for a RICO charge, money laundering, trafficking, or proof that any part or all of his fortune were made through illegal means, he can stand to lose it all. He can stand to lose all of his assets and his money. And for a billionaire, that is a lot. I also briefly talked about his race lawsuit against Diageo. So what happens is when you do not create your wealth and income from the sweat of your brow, and you have to leverage relationships with powers that be, the elite, they own you. They basically own you. They have made you a billionaire. So when you come now and you sue them, they're going to come and snatch everything away from you. And I think that's what this witch hunt is really about. Even the raids, right? Because if it was an effective raid, why were TV stations notified and there before the actual raid? So that means it was leaked. That means it was on purpose. And there's a lot of people speculating, allegedly, that the raid wasn't necessarily about finding things that could be used in this case, and that the raids were actually other people, powers that be, trying to find any dirt Diddy may have on them. Because as you know, he had a lot of cameras at all these different parties and was always recording people. So, and most of the times in those situations, people do that as their insurance so that if they fall, the fall comes with them. So I just wanted to put that out there. Lala, what does this have to do, since we're talking about money and business? Can he lose his homes? Can he lose his personal property?
Well, in these cases, no, because this is not directly tied to his assets in that manner. And it's state by state situation. This is a domestic violence case. And the statutes of limitations have been gone on this one. In fact, as soon as this happened, people were so outraged, they reached out to the Los Angeles Police Department, and they had to come out immediately and say, we are aware, we know that this happened. However, we can't do anything about it because the statutes of limitations are over. So how it can directly kind of leak to that is the fact of what you talked about. He's going to start losing money when it comes to sponsorship. He's going to start losing partnerships and things behind him. That directly affects your income. And now, can you afford to keep that $5 million, $6 million, $10 million house in Los Angeles? Can you afford to keep that one in Miami? So it will do the trickle down effect, but not directly. Now, unless someone else sues him and goes after his assets, that's different. But I also, another part that was put into this is right before all of this came out and after Cassie's case came out, people started putting their lawsuits in. And what did he do? He turned around and he said, I'm going to give all my artists their publishing rights back. Okay, that's money out of his pocket too. So it's already affecting his money, but in different manners than what it is directly.
I'm glad you brought that up, Lala, because I was going to mention that. And I was watching actually a documentary with Aubrey O'Day, which is one of his former artists, that she's always spoke about something's wrong with Diddy. Diddy be abusing people, and no one believed her. And that's part of that manipulation, because he made her be portrayed as someone that's promiscuous and bad and hard to work with. And so when she left Danity Kane, which is the girl group that he formed with her in it, she wasn't able to get a job. She wasn't able to work anywhere because no one would take her. And the only thing that she could get was the cover of Playboy, which played right into the narrative that he made everyone else believe about her. Because we talk about, well, how hard is it for people to leave? Well, there's another layer to that. But she had mentioned those, the giving them their rights back for their music. She said in the contract, they weren't allowed to talk about him, talk about anything that they seen. Literally, they had to be on mute with anything regarding Diddy if they accepted those. She couldn't even share her own personal experience if she had accepted those. And so there's that controlling factor right there. And so people are looking at, oh, well, it was for the money. He knew it was coming. That's why he went and did that, because he was trying to silence as many people as he could before all hell broke loose that he knew was on the horizon. And real quick, something else I wanted to point out. You said, Dr. Alicia, he has to consciously make the decision to get better, which that's lacking for a lot of people. They have to want to get better, but first they have to believe that they did something wrong in the first place. And a lot of the comments were saying, well, why did Cassie wait so long? It takes time.
Question.
It takes time to get into the situation, hence the grooming, and it takes time to heal. In my own personal experience, it was a while before I could even verbally express out some of the things that I had been through. So how am I going to share my story and help other people heal if I can't even say it out loud for myself, let alone a therapist, which takes time and resources and money. Oftentimes we have free resources, but how many people have access to those? So just so many factors that play into this whole situation.
Yeah,
and I like to jump in when we talked about, I'm sorry, when we talked about the publishing, people also need to realize that after a while, your publishing is worth not as much as it once was. So when he gave all those artists back their publishing, he had to milk the cow already. It was bleeding dry.
$300 something. That's what Aubrey said. It was literally 300. I don't remember the exact number, but it started with 300.
300. When my father passed away, and we were in the process of doing everything, and my stepsister in England had him cremated, my brother and I did hire a private investigator to look at his royalties. By the time he sifted through everything, he said, listen, I'm not even going to charge you any money because what's left is between $3,000 to $5,000. She had gone through my father's royalties just that fast. And you know what? I said, it's just not worth it. So I tell people, that intellectual property, it means something. Hold on to as much as you're publishing your work as possible. Copyright, publish, trademark. That intellectual property is just as important as physical property.
Yeah. And then Cassie had to wait till her NDA was up too. So if you sign an NDA, you can't really say anything until that expires. So I want to go to final thoughts with you ladies. I know we can talk all day about Diddy because there's so much to unpack here. And it seems like Cat Williams was a prophet because he was saying all these big D deviants going to catch hell in 2024, and it has not let up. Okay, we are about to hit midway in June, and it just seems like every month something crazy happens, especially with the music industry between Drake, Diddy, all the things. So I want to start with final thoughts, and I want to start with you, Dr. Alicia. What are your final thoughts about this whole situation with Diddy?
My final thought is that we're in a new age right now. We're in an age where artists' personal life is now being exposed. And yes, you could be a wonderful singer, performer, producer, but if you don't have your personal life in check, it can get exposed. This is not how it used to be. Even 2 or 3 decades ago, it was your personal life was sort of private, and what you did in the forefront was everybody admired the talented person. Now everything is being exposed. You need to get your life together, your personal life together, as well as what we see exterior, because things are coming out. People are coming out and talking. So this is the new age of entertainment business. We are finding out about how you are in private situations, and it's taking its toll on your business and your money, which is what we talked about today. So now's the time for everybody to get their house in order, and in order for them to prosper in terms of in their business. So yeah, this is the time.
And where can they find you,
Dr. My name is Dr. Alicia. The best way to get a hold of me is going to my website, Coaching with Dr. Alicia. You want to get your personal life together so that your external life can sync up. You can be just as fabulous as you claim to be on Instagram. You can come and talk to me. coachingwithdralicia.com. And of course, you can find me on Instagram at Coaching with Dr. Alicia.
Listen, you must be booked and busy because the mental health of Gen Pop is at a zenith right now. So Erica, how about you? What are your final thoughts and where can people find you?
There's nothing new under the sun. That's the book of Ecclesiastes. And, this is unfortunately what happened to Cassie. This has always been talked about in the industry. I remember my mother telling me about this with David Ruffin and Tammy Terrell. Women in the industry are always somehow taken advantage of. When my father died, I ended up with a short-lived record deal, and it was short-lived. I fell out with one of the executives. He called me out of my name. He tried to put me in, restrictions. You can't do this, you can't do that. But I was a woman of a certain age. And when I saw something I didn't like, I said something. So I was punished. I was put on studio halt, where I couldn't go in and record. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. And if I got caught in the studio, I was going to be sued for breach of contract and all of this mess. And then, once everything just was resolved, the contract was amicably resolved. So women being taken advantage of in this industry full of men that are sharks is nothing that is new under the sun, and it's going to continue to be an issue until we do something about it. Okay, that's just what it is. We have to speak up. We have to keep making it known. And once you keep putting a highlight on something and an emphasis on something, it will change. I can be found all over socials as Miss Erica Renee, and you can also find me on faithintransition.com.
All right, Lala, I'm going to kick it to you. Where can the people find you, and what are your final thoughts on this topic?
Well, my final thoughts is to anyone who is going through this situation. I'm going to remove Diddy out of my message to you. You are worth more than gold. You are priceless. You do not have to live in the dark when there's beautiful sunshine waiting to shine on your face. If you have one inkling of not being worth anything in your relationships, know that you are a queen. Let's put your crown back on and walk in the sunshine, because there is help and there's a better life for you. And I encourage you to walk in that sunshine. I help to educate, motivate, and uplift in real estate and life. And you can find me at bit.ly/Laura Key Info.
Listen, I felt it right here. I felt that hit right here, Lala. All right, Lindsay, where can the people find you in these internet streets, honey? And what do you have to say about our topic today?
Yes, liveafirstclasslife.com is where you can find me. And I just want to point out the proximity, because right now, Black men are being put on blast saying, oh, well, it's very prominent amongst Black men, but it's very prominent to the people that you're closest to. So of course, you're going to see it happen amongst Black men if you're around a lot of Black people. And with it being a hush hush topic, well, of course, the white people or the Asian or whomever aren't going to put their dirty laundry out for you to see, but the people closest to them will see that. And there are many, many Black men that love and appreciate their women. I am married to one that has never called me out of my name, never put his hands on me, or even pretended to put his hands on me, okay? 15 years tomorrow. So they are out there. And one more thing to mention is that a lot of comments were saying, well, we have to teach our girls the signs and everything. And yes, that's true. And we also should teach our boys, because men can be victims of domestic violence as well. However, along those same lines, we also need to hold our men accountable and our women that you don't do those things. You don't treat people that way. And I think if people would have held Diddy accountable way back years ago, decades and decades ago, then we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it today. So you have to use your circle and rise up people that are around you and say, hey, yo, that's not okay. So Lindsay Vertner, you can find me at liveafirstclasslife.com.
All right. Final thoughts from me. What I will say is that this situation with Diddy and Cassie is very unfortunate. And oftentimes in these situations, there are financial aspects to this. A lot of women also stay in these DV situations because of lack of resources, lack of money. So my thoughts on this, if you are a woman who, even if it's not a DV relationship, but you feel like you have to stay in something that is not fulfilling, not uplifting to you because you just can't afford to leave, then my charge to you is to think about ways that you can expand yourself financially and to reach out into the community or to the domestic violence hotline if you're in that situation, or just learn about how you can, financially support yourself. My name is Athena Gardner. I was your host for today. I am a CPA and women's wealth coach. So you can find me at wewealthwomen.com, where I teach women how to live a more abundant life and be the wealthy goddesses they deserve to be. And that is all for today, guys. Thank you for joining us, Queens, today. We will be here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Be sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to text the word Queens. Okay, so that's Queens with an S to 87948. We will see you tomorrow.